Hi, this is Terry Bay, and this is another installment of my stitch series. This one is doing blanket stitches and turning corners. So if you need to know how to do the blanket stitch itself, go to the video that says blanket stitch. If you need to know how to join a thread, go to the one that says blanket stitch, joining a new thread. This one is just going to be turning corners, so I'm not going to tell you how to do the stitch, just show you how to turn the corners. Okay, we are back to the model that, if you watch the first two, you've seen a couple of times now. So now we're going to turn a corner. We've been stitching along a straight line. We need to turn a corner. Most corners for blankets are at least in counted. Now if you're doing non-counted crewel type, you can go any which way you want. In counted thread, mostly it's a 90-degree turn. So I'm going to show you what I think of as an outer turn first, and then I'll show you an inner. Okay, when you do an outer turn, you have 5 stitches to complete the turn, usually. All 5 stitches will go down in that same inner hole. There will be 5 separate outer ones. Okay, confusing? Here, let me show you. So I'm going to do the first stitch, which is going to be just a straight up blanket stitch like we've been doing. Just every bit as normal as what you've been used to. All right, now we're going to do a stitch number 2 of the turn, going down into this very same hole right here, coming to the top 2 threads over. So if you see, this stitch is going at an angle. Into the same hole at the bottom as my first stitch, but a different hole at the top. And I missed again. There we go. Now, since I'm doing contrasting color, you can see some white through there. If you're doing the same color of thread and fabric, you won't see that. All right, down in the same hole for stitch number 3, up again 2 threads over. Now, so if you want a more rounded corner, you could stitch this one over one and down one to make it more of an angle. I'm going to do a square corner here. Thread under the needle and pull through. All right, now for this next one, still going into the same hole right here, same hole, I'm going to come 2 threads down. Let me move the thread out of the way so you can see where the needle's coming out. There we go. And for stitch number 5, into this same hole, you're going to come up 4 threads over, 2 threads down from the last stitch, and that should have taken you to a nice 90-degree angle. Now I'm going to do a few more stitches, and then I'll show you what I term the inner corner. Those really aren't proper terms, they are just what works in my brain. Pulled that a little tighter than it should be. I would loosen these up a little bit. Again, if you're using tone on tone, it won't matter so much. Okay, so now I'm going to turn an inner corner. Now it is kind of the opposite of the outer corner. In the outer, we had 1 hole here and 5 out here. Now for the inner, I'm going to do a regular blanket stitch like we've been doing. So this is stitch number 1. Now to turn it, and I'm going to move my loop out of the way, I'm going to count down 4 threads from the top of my stitch, come up, sharing the hole on the outer, not the inner like we did here, on the outer. and there's only 2 stitches on this. You've got a horizontal one, then a vertical one. They have different holes on the inside, same hole on the outside. Thread under, and there we go. So now I'm ready to start going across again. And so on. Now I'm going to show it to you again. Move that out of the way. Using my right to left, the other direction as we call it. Not a right direction, not a wrong direction, just the other direction. You use the one that works best for you, but be consistent. Don't use left to right and right to left in the same design. Within each design, keep them all the same. Okay, so I'm going to work my first stitch of the outer corner. Okay. Oh, and there goes my clock, sorry. Now using the same hole on the inside and going over 2 threads at the top. Stitch number 2. Same hole at the bottom, 2 threads over at the top for stitch number 3. Same hole at the bottom, 2 threads down on the side. Put that up a little higher, there you go. And now, same hole at the bottom, 4 threads straight out. And it is turned. Now to make this easy for me to stitch, I'm going to have to rotate my fabric. I normally do that more than I have been, but this one's just going to be impossible to do without rotating. Must have gone too many stitches there because now I've got 2, 3, 4, 5 threads. So somewhere here I made a mistake. Yeah, see, that one went over 3 instead of 2. As I said, your counting errors are much easier to find on the back. As this is a demo and I'm just showing you the corner turns, I'm going to leave it. I'm going to do some stitches over 5 here. This is how life goes. Because you don't want to spend another 5 minutes watching me back it out to do a new one. Do you? No, you don't. And I don't want to spend 5 minutes backing it out and stitching it again. Now, if it were something I were stitching for a class model, I would absolutely do that. Okay, so let's do an inner turn. So I'm going to do a blanket stitch, just like we have been. And now to get that 90-degree turn, from the top of the stitch, I'm going to count over 4 threads. Come up again, thread under the needle, and work your stitch. There we go. And I'll do a couple more. So there you go. Turn it back this way, get my thread tails out of the way. blanket stitch corners. All right, there will be one or two more blanket stitch ones because I want to show you blanket stitch eyelets, and we'll see if there's any variations I'm going to show you, but this is the basics for blanket stitch. Thank you for watching, and I hope they help.